I am Michael, and my partner is Jennifer. We have joyously been wed for 17 years. Our lovely family consists of two delightful children, our son Jacob and our daughter Emily. Recently, Jennifer has consistently been coming home late from work, and today was no exception. She arrived at nearly 10 p.m. By that time, the children and I had already had our dinner and completed their schoolwork. They went to bed about an hour earlier, apparently oblivious to their mother's absence or its cause. This new routine has caused me considerable distress as I spent the last hour thoroughly examining our financial situation. Over the past 2 years, our financial stability has noticeably declined. Our income has decreased sharply, yet my wife appears unaware of this. She continues to spend as though our financial difficulties don't exist. Just moments ago, I managed to pay our most recent bills, realizing we might manage to get by for a few more months in this bleak situation. Reflecting on my life ambitions and future possibilities, I recognize that I might have ignored a major problem. For the last 2 years, I have been fixated on an impending disaster, unsure of its ability to explode or its timing. I constantly expected it, yet doubts have increasingly clouded my thinking. I have been so absorbed in my worries that I lost track of time. Finally, she broke the intense silence by crossing her arms and adopting her usual expression of contempt. "Michael, I want a divorce," she announced. In that instant, I found it hard to process my feelings. I was overwhelmed with doubt and self-blame, nearly immobilized by the sudden rush of emotions. The situation was far from humorous, but despite its seriousness, I almost laughed. After 17 years together, my wife suddenly indicated that our joint journey was approaching its end, and everything we had worked hard to build was in jeopardy of falling apart. Strangely, a fleeting sense of relief briefly caused me to smile. I looked at her, allowing myself one final mental recap of the cherished memories from our better times before the harsh reality set in again. Although I'm better skilled as a programmer than as a manager, in the corporate world, programmers often rise to become project managers, then department heads, and eventually senior managers. Thus, I found myself as the senior product development manager, a position that turned out to be more symbolic than effective, a complicated facade for an experienced salesperson. Among the candidates, I was the most suitable for this role. I alone initiated our primary product line, nurtured it from inception, and was crucial in its development through 6 successive updates. I have become exceptionally familiar with our product. When clients needed answers, I provided them. When our team faced problems, I solved them. With a new haircut and an expensive suit, I certainly looked the part. The significant salary increase and attractive benefits that accompanied my promotion was certainly appealing. Though I am satisfied with my position, deep down I miss the programming world I once passionately embraced. Regrettably, my current duties leave no opportunity for engaging in programming. Endless meetings and continual phone calls consume all my time, leaving no chance to delve back into coding. I've had to watch as a new wave of young programmers took over, each eager to surpass the others with their creative solutions. While being a leader offers its advantages, deep down, I long for a different set of responsibilities. Therefore, it was unsurprising that I was eventually let go from my position at Chicago Technology Solutions. Honestly, if I were in control, I would have made the same decision. My attendance at meetings had become sporadic at best, and my failure to meet several deadlines did not yield results. Although I did not seek dismissal, I scarcely made an effort to maintain my position at CTS. I was in a prolonged state of discontent. It took nearly 3 months for me to overcome the initial depression and gather the energy for further endeavors. Unfortunately, my efforts to progress were largely unsuccessful. It took another month of mental anguish to devise a resolution to the crisis that had enveloped me. Though imperfect, it was at least adequate. Certainly, I believe that, without my children, I would have lost my sanity. Their consistent everyday routine and sheer presence served as a guiding light for me, helping me reclaim optimism and a sense of direction in life. Each day, I followed a straightforward routine: breakfast, school, a snack in the afternoon, homework, dinner, sleep. This regular cycle acted as a guiding light for me, steering me towards a journey I hadn't foreseen. With unyielding determination, I wholeheartedly assumed the role of a stay-at-home father, embracing all its duties: household, tasks and driving became my new domains of involvement, which I wholeheartedly accepted. Surprisingly, my participation at home delivered true joy to my children's lives. It was through this fresh connection that I began to recognize my importance and the meaningful impacts I could contribute. Although I frequently felt insignificant, my wife seemed oblivious to any changes in our family dynamics. She appeared not to notice them at all. I encountered Jennifer Riley at a fraternity party, an event I almost ignored. My sole reason for joining the fraternity was to enhance future career opportunities post-graduation, not to engage in party activities during my college years. And joint study periods in the library quickly became habitual for us as we got to know each other better. Approximately 2 months passed before our initial official date took place. From that point, my life embarked on an extraordinary journey of 15 years of pure joy with Jennifer. Our courtship was relatively short, and our engagement was even shorter. Shortly after graduation, we exchanged vows and settled into our first apartment in the vibrant city of Chicago. It was an exciting chapter that signaled the beginning of our shared life. Each day we followed the same path, commuting together on the morning and evening trains to our first jobs. Financially, we were just getting by, but we took solace in facing these challenges together. It seemed we shared almost everything: family backgrounds, dating histories, interests, and aspirations. Where our tastes did not completely match, we complemented each other well. If I struggled in one area, Jennifer excelled, and vice versa. I managed our shared finances, and Jennifer was proficient in developing our social connections. Together, we found a harmonious equilibrium that helped us overcome life's obstacles, always supporting one another. We synchronized not only our personal lives but also our family routines, functioning collectively as a team. Over the years, we both advanced in our careers, which added to our success. Our circle of friends expanded significantly, bringing us happiness and new relationships. We saved diligently, which enabled us to buy our first house and simultaneously enjoy travel and leisure activities. Our personal relationship reflected the growth of our connection, beginning with soft embraces and gentle kisses. On the first day, as our bond deepened, we pursued more intimate moments, eventually acknowledging our dedication after 8 years together. Jennifer decided to leave her career when our beloved son, Jacob, was born. Following the joyous birth of Jacob, our family grew with the addition of our daughter Emily a little over a year later. We then made a substantial move, buying a spacious 3-bedroom house in the suburbs to accommodate our growing family and even adopting a beloved pet. Along with the new home, we acquired a family sedan and a minivan, ensuring everyone traveled comfortably. In many respects, our life settled into a comfortable, typical pattern: 2 children, a beloved pet, a cozy home, and 2 reliable vehicles. I thought this stage was the pinnacle of happiness, but I was soon to learn that even greater joy was on the horizon. Shortly after Emily's first birthday, I was thrilled to be promoted to manager, which elevated my career status. Following the promotion, it seemed that the cosmos had at last recognized what we had neglected for years: that I was a typical person who had subtly and modestly merged with the masses. The increase in salary was significant, it demanded serious consideration, and we certainly acknowledged its importance. Additionally, my new position came with the benefit of a flexible schedule, enabling me to spend most of the week working from home, with occasional trips to the office for critical meetings with colleagues and leaders. It is commonly stated that money cannot purchase happiness, and I wholeheartedly concur. Although money does not directly buy happiness, it certainly can afford various comforts and possibilities. With enhanced financial security, we were able to invest in stylish apparel and personal grooming, focus on health treatments, and purchase a new home in a more favorable location. These improvements elevated our confidence. I, once perceived as ordinary, now seemed somewhat above ordinary, and my wife, always beautiful to me, looked exceptionally appealing. Our private life, previously fulfilling, reached greater heights. Moreover, our holidays became more enjoyable, and we had the freedom to spend increased time with our children while saving for their future education and our retirement. As Emily started elementary school, Jennifer chose to return to work part-time, introducing a fresh dynamic to our life. She quickly found a job at a nascent marketing firm which thrilled her. Her daily schedule involved taking the kids to school before going to the office and finishing in time to collect them. This routine perfectly complemented our life, and since her earnings were not the main income, we were able to save. By my estimates, by the time our children graduated from college, we would have amassed enough to retire comfortably. Unexpectedly, just 3 months before our 15th wedding anniversary, I was faced with the startling discovery of my wife's infidelity. Ironically, this revelation came on my birthday, though I did not become aware of the evidence until 2 days afterward. It took several weeks to assemble the facts and comprehend the situation. Initially, I dismissed my wife's enthusiasm for delving deeper into her new role, assuming it involved a few additional hours of work each week and that I would handle picking up the kids from school. These shifts in our daily schedule had no significant impact on my routine, and I readily took on the role of retrieving the children without complaint. However, after about 3 months, I observed my wife becoming increasingly uneasy and distant. Concerned, I asked about her condition, and she explained that she was just adjusting to her job and experiencing some stress. To ease her stress, I decided to undertake more tasks at home. Unfortunately, our once vibrant, intimate life began to diminish noticeably. We decided to discuss it openly, and she frankly stated that she no longer felt the desire for intimacy with the zeal of her younger years, attributing it to her age. It was the first time I had heard such forthright words from her, but we tried to improve the situation. After a brief resurgence, our intimate life halted once more, and I hesitated to bring up the topic for fear of igniting an argument. I was on the brink of despair when an unexpected discovery forced me to face the truth. The weather had turned colder, and I started looking for my sweater. As I sometimes confused the closets where we stored our clothing, I was searching through a shelf in my wife's closet among a pile of old shoe boxes. There I discovered a hidden gift, a pink box decorated with a white ribbon, clearly from a lingerie store, caught my attention. My excitement heightened as I. However, her reaction was less enthusiastic than I had anticipated. She seemed to merely tolerate my outpouring of emotions. On my birthday, I made sure the kids finished their homework early, hoping it would not interfere with any surprises. Yet I was surprised when Jennifer got home late from work. Seemingly puzzled, she asked about dinner. Nonetheless, I maintained the facade to preserve the surprise and proposed pizza, which the children excitedly accepted. We concurred, and as we were about to depart, the waiter delivered a moving rendition of Happy Birthday. A hint of surprise appeared in Jennifer's eyes, but she quickly composed herself. "I'll give you your gift later, Michael," she assured me with a smile. The drive home felt strained, and I narrowly avoided an accident. The 15 minutes it took for the kids to get ready for bed were excruciating, and the subsequent 15 minutes waiting for them to fall asleep were just as painful. Luckily, Jennifer came back from a quick run to the store for milk soon after they fell asleep. When I went to the bedroom, Jennifer was absent. I lay on the bed waiting. Eventually she came out of the bathroom dressed in a long flannel nightgown, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and without makeup. By this time, the scene before me began to diminish my excitement. "When will I finally get my gift?" I asked. She joined me in bed, slid under the covers, and reached to turn off the bedside lamp. "Oh, I almost forgot," she said. She pulled out a small square box wrapped in colorful balloon-themed paper from our son's last birthday from the bedside table drawer and handed it to me. "Happy birthday, dear," she uttered before rolling onto her back, turning off the light and falling asleep. Shocked, I didn't even unwrap her gift. The next day, my sorrow deepened. I replayed the day's events, trying to figure out what had marred our evening. For nearly 2 weeks, I was enveloped in melancholy. This cursed gift taunted me, its bright pink color nearly flashing, a vivid reminder of my dismay. I was familiar with all the clichés. The husband is always the last to know. Ignorance is bliss. Honestly, I was clueless. The possibility of Jennifer cheating never entered my mind until she called 13 days after my birthday to tell me she'd be late coming home due to a celebration for Aylan's 30th birthday. "The team is throwing him a party. I'll probably be home very late," she explained. I don't remember responding to her or even going into the bedroom closet, but I distinctly remember staring at the empty space where my gift once was. The severe pain in my chest and the subsequent episode of vomiting in the bathroom remain vividly ingrained in my memory, periods I'd rather erase. I was haunted by the idea that I might have had a heart attack, and for a moment I actually wished it was true, longing for the potential end. Alan Henderson, Jennifer's boss, was a clever and astute advertising executive, and turned out to be considerably younger than both Jennifer and me. I had met him only once, and I distinctly recall a strong dislike for him, primarily because of his consistent untruthfulness during our conversation. Emily snapped me out of it. "Are you okay?" Dad, her concerned voice broke through my mental fog, and it took me a moment to focus on her tear-stained face above me. "I'm fine, honey," I replied, managing a weak smile. Dad just had something that didn't agree with his stomach. "I'll be out soon." Eventually, I left the bathroom confines, though much of what followed remains blurred in my memory. I only recall reaching for my neglected bottle of whiskey, its dusty exterior mirroring my neglect. Judging by the headache I had the next morning, I deduced I had consumed several shots in a futile attempt to numb the pain. I wasn't aware of when Jennifer came back, but seeing her in the kitchen, caring for the kids as if nothing had changed, erased any lingering affection I had. Only a slight quiver that crossed her face as she sat down to eat extinguished any remaining love I had. It was an incredibly subtle change, hardly noticeable, yet it was unmistakably there. I wish I could recount a story of how I courageously confronted my unfaithful wife, but in reality I was completely devastated. I was immobilized by the weight of my feelings, barely able to find the strength to move, and the situation only worsened. For weeks I existed in a void, just a shadow of my previous self, painfully aware that my wife continued with household duties, unaware of the crushing truth. Every day, I descended further into despair, sure that I had hit the absolute lowest point. It wasn't until our 15th wedding anniversary weekend that I managed to gather the energy to snap out of my daze and make a choice. Until then, I had been indulging in my own frailties, fully aware of my lack of action. It's possible I was in shock, though a more specific psychological term might better describe my condition. If my father was still with us, he would have bluntly called me an idiot. And he would be right. My mental haze lifted when my wife brought up her forthcoming work conference. I realized then that she would be away for our anniversary. I couldn't understand why this hit me so hard, but it felt like yet another insult. The hurt was especially intense because she seemed to utterly ignore the significance of the day. I numbed my pain and ended up asleep on the evening of our anniversary. When I awoke, rage filled me. I had reached my tipping point. I promptly reached out to an attorney and arranged a meeting, determined to end this farce. I was convinced things could not worsen. Yet, I was wrong. My initially decisive visit to the lawyer's office quickly turned into overwhelming dismay. I was aware that divorces could be tough, yet the reality hit me hard. At first I assumed my wife's betrayal would work in my favor legally, but to my frustration my attorney methodically refuted my assertions. I lacked concrete evidence of her cheating, and even if I had it, it probably wouldn't alter the divorce proceedings much. Legally, our assets were to be split evenly, giving me no leverage. Moreover, I had no grounds to argue that my wife was an unfit parent, so joint custody seemed like the best route. The difference in our incomes tipped the scales further in her favor, requiring me to pay both alimony and child support. It seemed more likely that my wife would get primary custody. Additionally, she probably had the right to stay in our house for the sake of our children. It was hard to come to terms with the fact that my wife had been unfaithful and I had been clueless. My emotions transitioned from deep sadness to complete despair. A few weeks later, my faithless wife even had the audacity to check on my well-being. "You don't look good, Michael. Is something bothering you?" "What is it?" she asked, pretending to care. In the meantime, I just drifted through life, feeling aimless and empty. Then suddenly I received news of my job termination. Unbeknownst to me, this would turn out to be the most fortunate occurrence in my life. It was a glimmer of hope that appeared as I watched the evening news amidst a string of bleak stories that echoed my own despair. Amid the gloomy narratives, one headline caught my attention: a major East Coast company had gone bankrupt, leaving its former employees struggling with uncertainties over their recent paychecks and pension futures. Strangely, this report made me feel a connection to them. As the news continued, a realistic assessment followed. While the employees might win a lawsuit against their bankrupt employer, in the end, it didn't matter. The harsh reality was that all assets were depleted and the employees were facing financial devastation. It took little effort to formulate a simple plan. If there was nothing left to claim, then my wife could demand nothing. We would have nothing, thus nothing to split. Admittedly, this approach meant I was sabotaging myself, but given that I was already set to lose half of everything, did keeping the rest really matter to me? My initial plan was clear now. Without a job, I decided not to seek work. Instead, I resolved to drain our savings until nothing was left. This was clearly a precarious idea, and even I doubted its practicality. Nevertheless, it offered me a sense of purpose amidst the turmoil. 2 years might not seem lengthy, but the days stretched endlessly, particularly in isolation. It became evident that Jennifer was the pivotal figure in our circle of friends. As she pulled away, I recognized the lack of truly deep connections. Being an only child made my solitude worse, especially following the early deaths of both my parents, my father to a heart attack and my mother to cancer. With their passing, I was completely alone. Although a detailed account of these years would be tedious, they can be summed up as nothing short of dreadful. During this grim time, my children were my only source of hope. I was never extravagant, always watching each penny closely. Yet a transformation happened within me. I started to take out small sums of money each week, saving it with a definite purpose. After about 2 months, it became apparent that our spending was not leading to significant outcomes. It was clear that I had a strong inclination to save but lacked the skill to spend effectively. Thus, I decided to step up my efforts and modify my original plan. Consequently, I signed up for an executive MBA program in spite of the high fees involved. Additionally, this program was conveniently located near me. In a bold move, I invested a significant sum of nearly $120,000. I also spontaneously purchased a new luxury SUV, which cost me a surprising $60,000. I allocated a large sum of $260,000 to fully fund the educational savings accounts for my children. Furthermore, I incurred significant expenses, spending thousands on a new wardrobe. Additionally, I began to withdraw money more frequently. Twice a week, I would drop the children at school, visit the bank, and drive past the lake. Though I was never really into gambling, I occasionally set aside a small amount for my entertainment. I spent enough to simulate a day at the casino, complete with receipts for lunch, snacks, and parking. The majority of my funds were kept in a secure wall safe in our garage, which served as my private reserve, designed to protect me in potential divorce disputes. Another major cost was establishing continuous private surveillance of my wife and her paramour. I swiftly demanded thorough documentation, including videos, photos, and daily logs of their activities. I am reluctant to reveal the financial toll this period took on me. You might wonder if my wife was aware of my unusual spending. I would say yes, except for the funds used for gambling, which went unnoticed. I had to inform my wife about the transfer of funds for her children since her signature was necessary for the custody accounts. She probably noticed the new car and wardrobe, but she never mentioned them. I am sure she thought I was working hard and that we were still living comfortably. Interestingly, she also made some purchases which I kept silent about. I often wondered who was the recipient of her frequent lingerie shopping, but this topic was never discussed despite our courteous interaction and daily exchanges. It seemed we simply coexisted like roommates with a shared disdain. The time spent with my children was truly priceless. It became the most cherished part of my life. Fostering their diverse interests was important to me. We tackled homework together, engaged in exciting games, and our outings included visits to parks, thrilling bike rides, and movie trips. Since I assumed the role of a home chef, they helped with genuine enthusiasm. To keep them interested, I tried some simple recipes and let them actively partake in the cooking. Jennifer sometimes attended our family gatherings, although I made no specific efforts to include her. If she decided to participate, it was on her own accord and without any prior discussion. I received a weekly report detailing my wife's activities. Initially, I assumed she was communicating with her boss, but it later became evident it involved multiple colleagues. Eventually, clients of the company also became part of the list of her lovers. Did this trouble me? Not particularly. I already had suspicions about her behavior, so obtaining tangible proof did not affect me emotionally. The content I encountered was not especially exciting. The video resembled poorly produced adult material, and although it offered me a slight sense of relief, it was rather unremarkable. it was clear that Alan Henderson was not adept as a lover, despite his affairs with several women. This was an unexpected discovery given the gifts my wife received from him. I assumed they shared a romantic bond, but it turned out these were just casual liaisons with benefits. He simply entered into an ordinary relationship with my wife, which she accepted despite his unexceptional appearance. This scenario repeated with the other 6 men who were involved with my wife. Nevertheless, there existed one distinctive patron, a petite and scholarly-looking gentleman adorned with spectacles and a shirt pocket protector, who openly declared his intentions towards Jennifer. Evaluating whether she found pleasure in the interactions is challenging based on the photo and video quality, however. From my viewpoint, it appeared highly uncomfortable and possibly painful for her. A year into this endeavor, I noticed that I hadn't experienced any trace of desire or passion for intimacy since I began this journey. Interestingly, this lack of feeling didn't bother me significantly. It merely added to the annoyance in my already discontented life. Hence, after a year, I opted to stop observing. Going through the materials had turned into a tedious task, and I had seen more than enough of them. Even with attending classes, looking after children, and participating in gambling, I found myself with an abundance of free time. It was then that I decided to concentrate on life after marriage, which I anticipated would eventually materialize. In line with this new direction, I started a new exercise regimen. I had always kept up a reasonable level of fitness. I couldn't say it was anything remarkable, however. Over time, I saw noticeable gains in my bench press and running endurance. I recognize that the development of large muscles and an attractive appearance are mainly dictated by genetics, and regrettably, I didn't belong to that category, but I was still pleased with my physical appearance. Preparing for a potential future job, I began to catch up on the latest trends in my former field. It quickly became clear that taking a year off had put me further behind than I initially realized. Consequently, I began dedicating several hours each day to familiarize myself with the latest technological advancements. I invested considerable time understanding software systems, especially focusing on my previous employer, CTS. It was clear that they were finding it difficult to advance. Although they managed to maintain their market position and stable revenue, they hadn't made significant strides in the tech industry. It became obvious to me that in a rapidly changing field, remaining static equates to falling behind. Additionally, I spent a significant amount of time studying divorces. While I sometimes contemplated vindictive tactics against my soon-to-be ex, most of my efforts were focused on understanding the impact of divorce on children. I had already made significant progress in dealing with my own distress, and the presence of my children was crucial in this healing process. It was vital for me to be fully prepared for the upcoming adjustment process for them, but I found that the available information was overwhelmingly abundant and often seemed irrelevant or misleading. As my journey progressed, after about 8 months, panic set in. My wife started adhering to a regular schedule, coming home at the usual time and even initiating conversations with me, asking about my day. Naturally, my responses were brief, yet she persisted. To my surprise, she began to dress more seductively at bedtime, clearly attempting to reignite our intimacy. Nevertheless, weeks passed, and the situation worsened. For a year and a half, she had been indifferent, merely meeting her responsibilities, but now she began to show interest in her lack of communication, voice her concerns, and seek explanations. She initiated talks about mending our marriage, but I remained completely silent. Her efforts at reconciliation continued until her birthday arrived. On that day, I placed her gift on the dining table, wrapped in the same wrapping paper she had used for mine. The content of the gift should not have been surprising. It took half a year before I finally opened the last birthday present I had received from my wife. I found my birthday gift in the quick shopping section of our local convenience store. It was a watch with a simple digital display. Initially, I felt a surge of irritation when I realized that my gift was a $9.95 five from a fast food restaurant, but this irritation soon subsided when I saw that they offered a suitable model for females. I resolved to let go of my anger and bought it, planning to present it to her later. It took 18 months before I finally gave her the watch. I would have preferred to witness her reaction, but regrettably, I was not present when she opened the watch. The kids and I opted for a spontaneous movie evening leading to our late return home. The next morning she left before the kids and I woke up. Suddenly, normalcy resumed. Jennifer began spending more time at work, and our conversations at home grew scarce. Eventually, it occurred she uttered the words I had expected. "Michael, I want a divorce." I hoped for a quick initiation of the process, yet it took nearly a week before her petition officially reached me. Reading it was nearly comical. The listed reasons included spouse and child support, an unequal asset split in her favor, and claims of psychological and emotional damage. I patiently waited until the day before our planned hike with the kids next month. I ensured their absence as I started to take necessary actions. After a week of outdoor fun and unwinding, we came home to find Jennifer alone in the living room, looking unwell, possibly with a stomach ailment. Watching her, I wondered what part of the situation shocked her most. She was unaware that I had submitted a counterclaim for divorce on grounds of adultery, demanding the house which was our main asset and full custody of the kids. I sought spousal and child support, given my unemployment and role as the primary caretaker for our kids over the last 2 years. Additionally, I pursued controversial lawsuits against Jennifer's 7 romantic interests for alienation of affection, though I had no real expectations of winning. Knowing Illinois law allowed such actions, I proceeded with resolve. I also sued Jennifer's employer and the companies of 3 clients who had affairs with her. I wasn't aiming to win these lawsuits, but anticipated the negative publicity could be tactically advantageous. I decided to send a DVD to Jennifer's parents and her best friend, displaying her most compromising moments. It was important she knew about the evidence I held, as stated in the counterclaim, but I left nothing to chance. When the kids had their snack and retired to their rooms to get ready for bed, they seemed to disregard their mother. She, in turn, made no effort to engage with them. I fetched a beer from the fridge, then sat in the living room facing Jennifer. She avoided looking at me for a while, and I focused on enjoying my drink. She looked not only ill but was also in tears, possibly from resentment. Finally, she gathered the strength to speak in a whisper, "It will ruin me." I calmly waited for her to meet my gaze, keen to see her reaction to my reply. After a pause, when our eyes met, I thought to myself, God, I hope so, although I anticipated more satisfaction from this moment. The lone tear in her eye left me unaffected. As a tear slid down her cheek, I felt disconnected. "Do you hate me that much?" Jennifer asked, her voice firm. I took a moment to collect my thoughts and responded, "No, Jennifer, I don't hate you. Hating requires effort. Frankly, I've exerted no effort towards you whatsoever. All my energy and focus are dedicated entirely to taking care of myself and the children." She tried to interject, but I promptly silenced her, refusing to let her tarnish the reputation of a good spouse. "Enough. I won't let someone despicable like you defame my wife's good name. She was loving and kind, my closest ally and life partner, and most importantly, a devoted mother to our kids. She died, you are the one who replaced her, but all I see is a reckless person who has taken her place. Do not try to converse with me as if we share any connection." After a long silence, she spoke again, desperation in her voice. "What should I do now?" I considered for a moment before answering. Is that a rhetorical question, or are you actually seeking my advice? Before she could reply, I continued, "I think there are multiple ways out of this dilemma. One possibility might be moving to a new place. You could try starting over and building a new life somewhere else. If I were in your shoes, I would choose that path, but I need to make it clear right now that I will not allow my children to be with you extensively. Thus, your decision to leave should not depend on their being there. Alternatively, you could choose to stay and try to preserve your dignity in this town, but there's always the risk that your lies will be uncovered or that you'll face difficulties in finding work. Maybe you could find solace in a relationship with someone who disregards your careless behavior, but what kind of despicable person would that be? Another option is to wallow in self-pity, but I truly hope you won't choose that path. It would deprive me of the pleasure of seeing you miserable, which fits a contemptible person like you well. Yet, I'm not sure my views mean anything to someone as senseless as you. They certainly didn't seem to matter when you made the reckless choice to get involved with your boss. I had been looking forward to this outburst for months, eager for the moment to vent my pent-up feelings. I should have felt triumphant when I finally took the opportunity, but as I watched each word erode what little was left of her morale, I hoped to at least feel some satisfaction. Instead, I felt empty. Handling the cases against my ex-wife's company, these firms wanted to avoid bad publicity and quickly resolve the arising issues from the extended investigation, which involved filing lawsuits, giving testimony, and deliberately leaking information to the media. We succeeded in bringing down my ex-wife's company, while I secretly initiated my own campaign, discreetly sending emails to the leaders of the other companies, revealing my wife, her boss, and their illicit activities. I questioned whether these clients really wanted to maintain a business relationship with a company that was bound to suffer serious consequences as the scandal came to light. Their revenues started to decrease slowly, and employees, eager to dissociate from the scandal, chose to leave, accelerating the downfall of the company. Eventually, they went bankrupt. Alan Henderson was fired and left the city, shamed. Even though the check I received was just $200,000, it gave me more pleasure than my previous victories. My attempts to sue for alienation of affection brought no results, which I hadn't expected yet. 4 wives managed to get financial settlements from their husbands, leading to more divorces. While their results were far from glorious in the process, I inadvertently hurt myself by often running into people aware of my situation. For a time, the mockery and scorn became overwhelming. Whether it was fortune or misfortune, it barely mattered to me anymore, weighed down by a sense of defeat. Unexpectedly, parts of the community proved to be quite supportive. Always a top priority, protecting the children from accidental harm, I largely succeeded. Although they were briefly disturbed, they recovered quickly. Yet my most notable achievement was being reappointed as the Vice President of Design and Development at CTS amidst the personal turmoil that engulfed me. Another consolation during this period was returning to programming for 2 years. I committed myself to develop an extension for the main CTS software, which integrated flawlessly with 2 competing software platforms. Leveraging my innovation, I ventured into entrepreneurship and started selling my novel product. Remarkably, within less than a year, I received purchase offers from all 3 companies interested in both my company and the software. The highlight of this success was finalizing an impressive deal worth $1 million. Additionally, the exceptional compensation I got from CTS was truly extraordinary. I briefly considered retirement, but with no social life to speak of, I realized that without a regular reason to leave the house, I would probably become reclusive. Fortunately, my new financial stability allowed me to hire a kind-hearted elderly woman who served as both housekeeper and nanny for my children. Over time, our bond deepened, and within a year, Mrs. Marin Jensen had become a fixed member of our family, living in an apartment above the garage of our new house. She filled the role of a grandmother to my children, radiating warmth and strictness when necessary. Her invaluable guidance stood out significantly with her broad life experiences. She offered the children unique insights, which I, as their father, highly appreciated. My love for my children was unconditional, and I strived to offer them support and care, yet I could not overlook the skepticism and rigidity that had formed within me. In moments of decision-making, she was my reliable confidante and advisor, providing clarity and wisdom. As the children matured, I treasured occasional meetings with them and their families. Regrettably, over time our close relationship began to wane. I held no ill feelings towards them for this change. It was clear that I needed to manage my bitterness to prevent it from affecting their lives. Mrs. Jensen continued to work for me until the children went off to college, at which point she retired. In gratitude, I offered her a pension that included free accommodation and meals for 15 years. She remained a steadfast presence in my life, always encouraging me to embrace the pleasures of life and to find someone with whom to share my days. I valued her efforts greatly, but she passed away knowing that I would likely be alone forever. Following her death, it became increasingly hard for me to connect with others. My friendships became shallow and dissatisfying. I seldom visited dating sites, except for some group activities organized by mere acquaintances. Over time, I gained a reputation as a detached and stern person who was not open to contradiction. It was clear that most people preferred to keep their distance from me, and I felt no resentment towards them. I realized that this isolation was a consequence of my own choices and behavior. I made sure my personal needs were met, and with my growing wealth I maintained a constant group of women, rewarding them handsomely for their time and company. Our interactions were purely professional. I engaged with them briefly before we parted, yet among them was Candy, or Mary Beth, as I later found out her real name was. She was an eager and collaborative partner, and it seemed our relationship went beyond the typical client service provider arrangement. It appeared I held a significant role in her life, just as Jennifer's life was becoming difficult. Despite my puzzlement about why she persisted in reaching out to me for nearly a year, I wondered if she was seeking reconciliation or perhaps a connection with our children. I made it clear to her that such an outcome was impossible. To monitor her, I organized surveillance when she tried to settle in Chicago. Moreover, I made sure her employment record came up whenever she applied for a job. When Jennifer started dating again, which seemed quite prompt, I took it upon myself to send her new partner's packages containing details about the woman they were getting involved with. It didn't particularly bother me whether they continued with her. After learning the truth, what concerned me was her failure to let go of the past and change history by ignoring it. After all, I was dealing with the consequences of our shared history every day, so it only seemed fair that she should too. Unfortunately, one of her potential suitors decided to confront me for harassing my ex-wife. One evening he gathered his courage, arrived at my doorstep, and pushed me hard, causing me to stumble and fall as I opened the door. This turned out to be a serious error on his part, resulting in a noticeable black eye for me. He confessed to assault and trespassing and was given a suspended sentence as a first-time offender. Following this incident, Jennifer stopped trying to contact me. A year later, I ended my surveillance when she obtained steady employment cleaning rooms at a remote roadside hotel about 700 miles away in the secluded wilderness of Virginia. Our paths crossed again unexpectedly after 16 years at my daughter's nuptials. While my offspring kept in touch with her, they refrained from mentioning their mother to me. It was during my daughter's matrimony that I was struck by her physical and mental state. She had entered a new marriage, but her fortunes had quickly turned sour. On her nuptial day, she encountered a grave calamity when her new spouse, a thrill-seeker, orchestrated a tandem skydive that went tragically awry, culminating in his demise and confining Jennifer to a wheelchair. Additionally, she had gained a considerable amount of weight, roughly 20 kilograms, her face etched with deep lines around her mouth, and other indicators of tobacco use were evident, making her look aged and weathered. But nevertheless, beneath it all, I could still recognize the woman I once held dear. I harbored no sentiments for her, yet post-ceremony I made my way over and held her gaze for a long stretch. Peering into her eyes, I detected a deep melancholy in her gaze, which echoed the influence she had on my life and revealed that I, too, was not at peace. If these narratives resonate with you, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out on the upcoming maelstrom of relationship tales. Your engagement is tremendously valued, and we are eager to bring you more captivating stories. Until our next encounter, bear in mind that every romance has a story deserving of being told. Catch you later.